absolutely. Thank you, Ayanda, for having me. When we started talking, actually, we were complaining about the lack of spaces for reviews, the lack of spaces for publishing indigenous languages, emerging writers, and upcoming academics. And we thought instead of complaining, why don't we come up with something that can bring everyone together? Because until now, when you want to get creative writing, it has to be something separate, criticism something separate, as well as academic essays. So for those who are lovers of art, who are lovers of literature, we thought we could create one thing that would be all-inclusive.
That's preempted my next question. Who did you have in mind when putting this together? I mean, there are people, for instance, who want to learn about other languages in English. There are people who want to improve their own language within that indigenous language itself. And there are people who want a mix of both.
Absolutely. This is an experimental project. Our approach, I must say, is daring because many journals have tried and failed in the past, and many print magazines and journals are folding. But we decided that we want to venture into this realm because, as we started discussing this, one thing we agreed upon is that this is a journal that is much needed in this space.
Yeah.
So we thought of Imbiza. I mean, we named it Imbiza Journal for African Writing. We saw it as that platform that bridges the gap amongst all these sectors within the humanities and social sciences sector.
Imbiza, which translates to a pot, so it's sort of a melting pot of all these writings. I see one from Koleka Putuma. Tell me a bit more about the contributors to this journal, and perhaps we can speak generally, not just about the first issue, and how you go about selecting who gets to write in this journal.
Yeah, perhaps I should start with the lead feature is on Fred Khumalo. Fred Khumalo has written no less than 13 books since 2006. So he's one of the most prolific writers we have around. One thing about him is that he is in many ways the embodiment of what Imbiza aspires to be, in the sense that he's both a critic and a creative writer, and also straddles two languages. He writes in English, he also writes in isiZulu, but he also helps us to illustrate the importance of journals in terms of discovering new talents, because Fred Khumalo was first published in Staff Writer magazine, and many magazines over the years, journals, have discovered writers that way. But we also have people like we're profiling poets like Koleka Putuma, whose profile is written by another poet, Vangile Kanjo. We have stories in isiXhosa like Amadoda Ndlaguse. We have poetry in Sepedi, Moses Silesha. We even have comics, because some of us got interested in books through images. That's how you enhance your imagination. But we also have like scholars like Brian Asibanda. We have scholars like Simamgele Zakavu, who really write really intriguing essays about in the field. And you would think of someone like Thandeka Maseko, who explores the area of translation, how words are translated from our languages into English,
right,
and then how the meaning can easily get lost in the process.
Yeah, this, speaking about that, actually, meaning making, this type of literature often gets life breathed into it through certain cultural works that accompany it. A lot of perhaps even things like metaphors and illustrations that are going to be painted through the words in this issue. can find expression in our cultures. So I wonder whether you think enough of that parallel process can take place to lift an issue like this to being something further than just being a book in shelves, but something that's a living, breathing document that can be interacted with, sometimes even on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. In the first place, the very name Imbiza, you tried to illustrate that earlier, that it is rich as a metaphor because Imbiza in isiXhosa is a pot which cooks for individuals, families, and communities. So we think of Imbiza journal as that kind of resource that would enrich people beyond their immediate reading. We say we're nourishing the mind. So what we'll try to do is to, first of all, this is 2021. We make use of electronic media. So there is a digital version of the journal so that anyone can access it from anywhere in the world. But furthermore, we make use of social media and other platforms where we keep readers updated and we try to engage as much as possible.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that really frustrated me as a student reading academic journals was that it almost felt like academics were writing for themselves and not necessarily for a much broader audience. How much attention are you paying to something like that? Because for me, at least, and you'll set me right if I'm wrong, the type of knowledge that exists in institutions of higher learning is so rich and nourishing that it's such a pity that because of how it's written, it becomes inaccessible sometimes to the people about whom the content is written about.
That is absolutely true, and it is one of our considerations when you consider the Imbiza. It's also the reason why, because you find that some of us enjoy reading short stories, but when you read academic essays independent of that work, you hardly find it easy to make sense, to draw parallels between the two. So that's why now we are able to publish both and try to do so in a more accessible language on the one hand, but also if you've noticed is that academic journals are meant for a particular sector, you know, and creative writing appeals to a different audience altogether. So what we have tried to do is to say, let us have the content that is academic, but packaged in such a way that would be appealing in the eye, first of all. That's why we put emphasis on the aesthetics, what the journal looks like, so that it can sit on the shelves alongside other popular magazines and be appealing in that sense. But also we tried in terms of the language to make it as accessible and as exciting as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, 10 out of 10 for aesthetics. It looks great. It feels great too. Like I said, I'm paging through some of the text as we speak. I see you also have a copy yourself. That definitely is a plus. I have to then ask about how you're financing it, especially in a context, like you said, where many newspapers, or magazines rather, are sadly folding because of where the industry is headed.
Well, from the beginning, we launched, actually, Imbiza was conceived last year. We established a website, put out a call, started marketing the journal, and we did that out of our own pockets. Imbiza Journal is a registered non-profit organization. So from setting up that base, we approached the University of Pretoria, the Center for the Advancement of Scholarship, where I'm a research fellow, and they were very happy to support the idea. So they give us administrative and logistical support. And fortunately, this year in February, our funding application was approved by the National Institute for Humanities and Social Sciences. So in other words, from an individual idea to being supported by the board by the University of Pretoria and now the NISS. We've made it happen. And our objective is really to create as much content that would be relevant to higher education and other levels of education, as well as the arts and culture sector. So we have these two critical stakeholders whom we hope would support the journal going forward.
Yeah, in 10 seconds, Dr. Mahala, where can people learn a bit more about this? A website, social media, where can we find you?
Yeah, our website is www.imbizajournal.co.za, and then we're on Facebook, Twitter, but if you want to contact us, you can email info@imbizajournal.co.za.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, and all the very best of luck with